It is a common myth that sexual harassment, specifically in the workplace, stems from displays of sexuality and workplace flirtation. However, this could not be further from the truth, as in reality, it is caused by a superiority mindset in the workplace. This can be seen in this graph here, as over the past 20 years, cases of sexual harassment has decreased very minimally, and sometimes even increased. This shows how this mindset has not changed, which has resulted in tremendous amounts of women being sexually harassed each year continuously. However, this sexual harassment can greatly impact these companies which are experiencing it. Hello, my name is Chase Harrimans. I will be discussing how sexual harassment in the workplace affects businesses. My research question is, in what ways has the prevalence of sexual harassment in the workplace affected the financial success of companies in the US over the past 30 years? My argument is that the prevalence of sexual harassment has had a direct negative effect on the profitability of businesses throughout the US. Now this can be broken down into 3 issues, the first of which is employee productivity. When sexual harassment happens in a workplace environment, it causes major psychological impacts to the employees of these companies, negatively impacting their productivity and work completion rates. Specifically, when an employee is sexually harassed, it sparks emotions in them, such as nervousness, irritability, and anger. These emotions constantly circulate throughout the victims, as they are put in an environment where they are continuously reminded of the sexual harassment and trauma that they had to endure. As you can see in this graph from the College Board Stimulus article, predator-induced fear causes PTSD-like changes in the brains and behavior of wild animals. One group of animals who are exposed to predator cues experience multiple times more fearfulness levels than a group of animals who are not exposed to predator cues that they have been exposed to previously on in life. Now, while this study was done on animals, this is still applicable to the workplace, as the victims of sexual harassment still exhibit the same fearfulness responses that these animals have been proven to in this experiment. These emotions interfere with the main cognitive functions of these employees, those of which are needed in their daily work tasks, contributing to their overall production decrease. However, this is not dissimilar to the other employees of the company who experience psychological impacts. However, for them, it is on the basis that they have to witness sexual harassment. In one interview done by Daniela Moran, 724 employees were interviewed, and out of those, 321 reported they have witnessed sexual harassment in their workplace environment. Now, this is a far more frightful amount, as this is almost 50% of a company's population, and these employees still experience the same psychological impacts that victims of sexual harassment do. This means that almost 50% of a company's population is going to experience greatly reduced production in addition to the victims who are already experiencing these side effects. The second issue is direct major costs for the company. As you can see in this graph here, to replace a middle-level employee for a company, it can cost a company $12,000. However, to replace a high-level executive, it can cost them as much as $213,000. Now, this can be detrimental to a company because, as I stated previously, employees who experience sexual harassment are put in an oppressive environment, which can increase their intention to quit by up to 25%, as reported by David N. Laban and Bernard F. Lentz. Meaning that these companies will pay thousands and thousands of dollars each time an employee quits to replace them, which can build up major costs for the company due to how many employees are leaving because of the toxic environment created by sexual harassment. However, this is in addition to the other legal costs that a company has to endure when dealing with sexual harassment. Now, if sexual harassment is to happen in a company in the first place, that means that the company, under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, has not done their job to protect their employees, which makes them liable for psychological and even physical damage that can happen to these employees. This, more often than not, leads to a lawsuit against these companies, in which these companies will be required to pay compensatory fines to their employees, which, under the Civil Rights Act of 1991, Title VII, can cause a company upwards of $300,000 if they have 500 or more employees, $200,000 if they have 201 to 500 employees, and $100,000 if they have 100 to 100 employees. This shows that for even the smallest of companies, they can end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars each time sexual harassment happens in their company. However, these lawsuits can also tarnish the reputation and brand image of these companies, resulting in further underlying costs for them. The knowledge brought out with the publication of sexual harassment lawsuits can, for one thing, deter potential employees from working at their company in the future. As Jeremy J. Sierra states, perceived sexual harassment negatively influences attitudinal perceptions on a brand of potential employees. This in and of itself is not a major issue. However, with the concerns raised earlier about employees, If a company does not have enough employees to cover current issues going on in the company, they will not be able to replace their lost employees in order to make their company effective at producing profits. This will ultimately lead to these companies being destroyed from the inside out. More concerningly, however, is that the tarnished brand image can affect how customers see these companies. As Yusufa Ferdiyaman states, brand image can affect everything from a customer's loyalty and trust in a company to their willingness to buy specific company products and services in the future. Now, this can hurt these companies who experience sexual harassment, as sexual harassment severely tarnishes these companies' reputations, leading to decreased overall profits due to less interactiveness with customers and the company. One example of this can be seen here with Uber, who in 2017 faced many sexual harassment complaints, complaints were reported by over 50% of the people who left the company to be the reason to switch to alternative modes of transportation. This means that this both hurt Uber and allowed the rival companies such as Lyft to profit from them. In conclusion, sexual harassment in a company can have very harmful effects, which can hurt employees' brand image and cause direct costs for the company. Now, there are many solutions that can be put in place to help solve this. However, one of them is to increase employee and management training in how to identify sexual harassment and what constitutes it. However, this can be limited through a lack of resources. It could lead to a lack of engagement in sexual harassment policies, as people would feel these trainings are redundant, and this cannot change employee behavior. The second solution could be to increase the severity of punishments for perpetrators of sexual harassment. However, this can cause less reports due to fear of their superiors being punished, which eventually comes back to them. It could lead to much more legal costs for a company, and does not address the root of sexual harassment. And the final solution, and the one that I feel is most suitable for the issues presented, is to alter current policies in place, which will allow for better methods of reporting sexual harassment. And the only limitations to this is that it could require additional practices to make sure employees know of these rules, and could be limited through a lack of resources. This is my work cited. Thank you.
All right, 2 questions. What evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and why didn't you use it?
Evidence that I gathered that I didn't use was evidence for more psychological impacts of sexual harassment. However, if I included this evidence, it would make my points redundant and would just repeat the same points over and over again.
What advice would you have for anyone who wants to look at sexual harassment in the future?
Advice that I would have for anyone who's looking into sexual harassment would be to analyze the different departments that could be affected by sexual harassment, and discuss specific psychological impacts, such as their emotions that are affected from sexual harassment, which greatly affects a company in the overall profits.